Hey, it's Vanessa, and welcome to the Tri-State Time Machine. We are slowing down this month to memorialize or help memorialize. Sorry, I get a little emotional when it comes to this stuff. We are going to help try to continue to memorialize the 1970 Marshall University plane crash. Tragedy can strike when least expected, leaving behind pain and loss that shapes the future. The plane crash involving the Marshall University football team in 1970 is a heartbreaking event that forever changed the lives of many. This tragedy serves as a reminder of the importance of safety in sports and the lasting impact of loss on a community. The story of Marshall University plane crash began on a fateful night in November. The team was returning home from a game when their plane crashed into a hillside, claiming the lives of 75 people, including players, coaches, and fans. This devastating event highlighted the need for better safety measures in sports travel. Teams must prioritize the well-being of their members by ensuring that they travel on safe and reliable transport. The impact of the crash extended beyond the loss of life. It deeply affected the Huntington community. The city came together in grief, showing strength and resilience in the face of tragedy. The memorial was created to honor those lost, reminding everyone of the importance of unity and support during difficult times. This sense of community and remembrance can inspire others to come together in the face of adversity, emphasizing the need for compassion and understanding in society. In the aftermath of the crash, Marshall University faced the challenge of rebuilding its football program. Many believed it would be impossible to recover from such a loss. However, the team persevered, showing determination and dedication. The 1971 season became a symbol of hope as the thundering herd returned to the field, demonstrating that even in the darkest times, resilience can lead to healing and strength. The Marshall University plane crash stands as a powerful reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of safety. The lessons learned from this tragedy continue to resonate today, urging sports and teams and organizations to prioritize the safety of their players and staff. Remembering the individuals lost in the crash encourages a commitment to community, resilience, and the value of life itself. It is crucial to honor their memory by taking action to ensure that such a tragedy never happens again. And that's the story that I have for you today, the 1970 Marshall University plane crash. At the center of Marshall University's campus is a structure and a fountain. It's called the Memorial Fountain, and it observes Marshall's darkest day. In 1970, the school's football team was attempting to come back from years of losses, but having no success at that point. With only 3 wins and only 2 games remaining in the season, on November 14th, 1970, they set out to play East Carolina. After a 17-14 loss, the team flew back to West Virginia with 36 players, 10 coaches and staff, 24 boosters, and 5 flight crew members. Unfortunately, the plane clipped a few trees on the way to the landing port. Tragically, all lives were lost. At that point, Marshall had no choice but to rebuild their team back. This was not an easy task, but they did so well that in 2006, a movie was made about their struggles and furthermore their success. Today, I'm joined by Amy Prestera and Katie Dawson, and we're going to talk about how they are related to the plane crash and how it's affected their family, not only then, but still now. All right, I am here with Amy Prestera and Katie Dawson. As I spoke to you before, this month's episode is on the Marshall plane crash that happened on November 14th, 1970. And we are talking about how this affected our community. So welcome, ladies. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Thank you.
We're good.
I'm glad to have you guys here. This has been an episode, I know I've told Amy this has been an episode that I've wanted to do for a really long time. I think in part because it is such a heartfelt spot for our community, but also because we love Marshall and Huntington. Like, we eat, breathe, sleep, dream
we bleed
Marshall.
Green.
We bleed green. We absolutely do. So tell us, Amy, your relation to the Marshall plane crash.
My grandfather, Michael Prestera Sr., was a member of the Big Green, and he wasn't even supposed to be on the plane. He was coming home from a business trip and was in the airport when one of the athletic directors asked my grandfather if he would be interested in a seat, a ticket to go with the team, and he said absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Well, because why not? Why would you not jump on the plane with the team?
He loved Marshall.
For sure. All right, Katie, tell me about how your relation to the plane crash.
My parents are Red Dawson and Carol Dawson, and obviously everyone knows who my dad is.
Absolutely.
Um,
If someone didn't know who your dad, would you tell them who your dad is, just in case? Because sometimes we have listeners that are new
oh,
to
okay.
Huntington.
My dad was Red Dawson. He was the assistant football coach when the plane crash happened.
And he was not on the plane.
He was not on the plane.
So he came back to coach the young Thundering Herd, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about it. It was 75 passengers and crew. That is with all the players, the Big Green members, community members, fans in general, and then the coaching staff, correct? Was your dad the only coaching staff that was not on the plane?
No.
How many
No.
were not, do you know?
There was Mickey Jackson was not on the plane
Okay.
either, and a couple other ones, but I'm not really sure who.
Okay.
I can't remember. Can
Cool. So your grandpa, was he just like randomly in the airport on his own, or was he traveling with someone else?
No, he had just come back. He had just been elected to the House of Delegates and had gone on a business trip and was coming home from a business trip. And he was walking out of the airport, and the team and the fans were walking in the
kind of
airport.
serendipity.
And they just happened to be passing, and he was stopped and asked if he wanted to go. And he said, absolutely. So he called home and asked for a suitcase and change of clothes. And somebody came to the airport and dropped off a suitcase, and off they went.
Off they went. Wow, I did not know that, and we've been friends for quite a while now. So there was 2 films made about the Marshall plane crash. So if anyone at home has not seen them, we have the Marshall University Ashes to Glory, which was released in 2000, and then of course the infamous We Are Marshall that was released in 2006. And then your dad is portrayed in that movie as a main character, pretty
Yes,
much.
Matthew
Yeah.
Fox
Yeah.
played him.
So that's pretty cool. I want to talk about a little how you feel like it affected your dad and how it still affects him today.
That's a deep question. Well, growing up, he really didn't speak about the Marshall plane crash.
I'm
So,
sure. I can only imagine.
Growing up, I didn't have a whole lot of working knowledge. You knew it happened, but there wasn't discussion about it.
Okay.
My aunt and uncle, who owned Matt Webb, who owned Mac and Dave's, part
Okay.
owner of Mac and Dave's, him and my aunt took me to the Marshall games.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't go.
Because dad was busy. Dad and mom were busy.
Well, Dad didn't go to the Marshall games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that wasn't until after the movie came into play that Dad started going back to the Marshall games.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there
Yeah.
was not. I had to do my own research on what happened
Gotcha.
with the plane crash as I got older.
Yeah.
But there was no discussion. Really.
Well, that's hard. Because that's a heavy burden to carry. I can only imagine.
Right.
And Amy, how did it affect your family?
Well, it's funny. My mom and dad were on their first date when the night of the plane crash happened. And as soon as my dad found out, when it came on the screen and they saw the TV announcements, my mom and my dad both got up and went to the hospital and met their mother and siblings with a room full of other family members waiting to
and
hear.
he's one of the few people that was able to call home and say, hey, we had
Yes.
this last minute change.
Yes. And so, they were at the hospital when they came out and spoke to each family member to let them know that there were no known survivors.
Gotcha. Your mom, I'm sure, has like very, very vivid memories of how the weeks and days to follow unfolded.
My mom talks about the countless funerals that they attended and the countless flower arrangements that arrived, the letters that arrived from the governor and from the flight crew families and from the airline and, congressmen, senators, business people sent flowers, sent letters, sent food, and my mom watched all that unfold.
Yeah.
And, she just kind of was a bystander at that point.
Absolutely. I can get that 100%. So, Katie, was it a little bit different for you where your dad kind of checked out for everything?
Yes. That's
Didn't
exactly
ha-
what happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. I just can't understand the burden that he must have carried. I know it's portrayed in the movie, but a movie can only go so far. So,
Correct.
so I can only imagine that weight that he still carries probably today. So let's talk about the Marshall 75 alumni chapter. Are you guys both members of that?
Yes, I'm the
Yes.
treasurer.
All right,
And
tell
I'm
us
a
about
board
it.
member.
Oh, awesome. That's look at you, Miss Fancy Pants.
Yeah. We started a chapter with the Alumni Association for the families of the 75. We have, a board, a president, a vice president, secretary, treasurer, and then a few board members on our chapter who, were integral parts. One of the gentlemen that is on our board, he was a fireman the night of the plane crash.
Oh, wow.
And then our president, her dad was one of the flight crew members that was on the plane.
Yeah.
And then our vice president, his grandparents were on the plane. They were fans.
So everybody in this alumni chapter has
Yes.
very close ties.
Yes.
Very good close
Yes.
ties. So tell me when you guys established that chapter.
It was established last year.
Okay.
We, got together and sat down with Brad Smith and talked about, something that we wanted to do. And they said it was awesome, an idea,
Because
great
it is.
for all of us to have,
Right.
something together
Absolutely.
as a group. And we have been raising money for a scholarship fund.
I was going to say, I read online about the scholarship fund that you guys have established that gives a full ride scholarship to descendants of plane crash
Yes.
victims. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Yeah. That's amazing. And what an undertaking that you guys have taken on your shoulders to raise that kind of money to make that happen.
Yes. There was a motorcycle ride in June of this year.
Now, will that continue?
Yes,
That will be an
every
annual?
year.
Okay.
That will be an annual thing. And then Monday, Marshall is releasing a special T-shirt, sweatshirt from Glenn's, and $5 from every purchase will go to our scholarship fund.
Oh, how cool.
And there'll be a Facebook Live.
To sell those or just to
on
let everybody
Monday.
know? Oh, that's so cool. So there's a limited run of those, I'm sure, right? Do you know how many? Are you in the loop?
No, I have no idea.
I'm like, tell me the
don't
secrets.
either.
Tell me.
Yes, no, we don't know. We won't know till Monday.
So, off your head, do you know how many fountain ceremonies you've probably attended in your life? Probably all of them since
Probably
you were
all
born.
of them, if not, I know more than 40.
Oh, wow. Wow, and it's such a beautiful ceremony if no one's ever gone. When they shut down the fountain, what time do they do that?
In spring,
In spring,
at
and
the
then
spring game,
and they relight it or
and then
reopen it,
then
relight
the
it as if
fountain
it's a
gets
candle.
the fountain gets turned off in November and turned on in April.
Oh, that's beautiful. And like I said, it's a very beautiful ceremony. Each year they have special guests that come and speak at that.
Yes.
Last year, who was it that spoke? What was the gentleman's name? Do you remember? He was a player, right?
He was a player.
Yes,
Okay,
he was
all
a
right.
And
player.
this year,
That's what I thought.
This year, it's a
Grandchild.
grandson
Yeah.
of Dr.
Egley.
Chambers.
Oh,
Was it
okay.
Chambers. Yeah,
That's really cool. That's really, really cool. So, if the listeners at home don't know, the flight left Kingston, North Carolina, and was on its way to Cerrito, West Virginia, to the Tri-State Airport. And the crash happened just about a mile shy of the airport. Am I correct on that? Yeah. I do know in the movie it's portrayed that basically, and this is something that I think me, myself, and listeners at home are probably not realizing, there were no cell phones. There were no social medias. There were none of that. So this community basically showed up at this plane site, this crash, to see if their loved ones was indeed, if that was their plane crash or their plane for one, because there was no way of, we didn't have real-time data at that point in time. So you had a whole community that basically shut down and went to the crash, went to the hospital, went to somewhere with groups of other people, churches, hospitals, you name it, to be with others until they found out who was on the plane. I know in the movie, and I don't know how true it is in real life, but Your mom didn't know that your dad was not on the plane. She had
She
assumed.
did.
Oh, she did know.
Yeah, there was
Oh,
some
okay.
Hollywood
So there
icing
was
going
some
on there.
Hollywood. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know because I can't imagine that heartbreak. Like that scene gets me every time in the movie. So that's good. That's reassuring to know.
Yes.
That makes my heart a little bit more happy about the situation because I can't imagine thinking that I've lost someone and then come to find out they're just piddling along driving Route 60 on the way home.
But there were several football players that no one knew whether
Right.
they were on the
Right.
plane or not.
Right. So, talk about some of your favorite stories from the plane crash that you've heard over the years.
The one story that really hits home is knowing that my grandfather had that opportunity to get that ticket, and and it's a very emotional thing knowing that he had no, we had no idea, we had no clue that the
Right.
plane would never make it back.
Absolutely.
But just knowing that the families that are all connected,
Yeah.
I've been friends with Katie for years, and we share a connection.
Absolutely.
We all carry it near and dear
I was
to
going
our
to say
hearts.
many of your good friends are families and
Yes.
relatives of the
Yes.
plane crash. But I think that goes to show the character of our community. I think we have the best fans in the world. I may be a little biased, but like we said in the beginning of the podcast, we bleed green here. We eat, sleep, dream, breathe green. We love our Marshall players. We love all of our sports. It's not just football. And we show up in a way to our sporting events that I think is unheard of in other communities. Would you agree with that? Yeah.
We care about each other, and we care about the community, the families. This will be 54 years, and it's still as fresh today as it was 54 years ago.
Absolutely. I was talking to a neighbor before I got here, and she was talking about how she was a little girl, and she was 4 years old, and her family, her mom and dad, were really good friends with someone on the coaching staff, and she remembers that night they went to campus, and she was in the AD room, and she remembers just having that particular coach, and I forget which one she said it was, set her up on the desk and kind of was like hugging her, just zoned out in his own world, and that was what he needed to kind of bring him back down to the realization that, oh my gosh, this just happened. And they had thought he was on the plane. So they had picked up his wife and drove to the college to be in that nuclear, family to figure out, was this true? Did this really happen? Is this just hearsay? But her and her husband are probably some of the biggest Marshall fans that I've ever heard. So shout out to Monica and Jerry. If there is a Marshall sports event happening, they are there. They're there an hour before. They're there an hour after. I think fans like that are a true testament to the whole phrase, we are Marshall, and I think for as long as Huntington is still thriving and Marshall's still growing, and God, it's growing. It's getting bigger and bigger with Brad Smith. But I think it will continue to live in the hearts of our community forever. I mean, I know that the crash was one of the worst in sports history, so we're known for that around the United States. But things have changed because of that crash. There's a lot of safety measures that are ensured now for teams. There are regulations of how they can travel, how many are allowed to be on a plane, things like that, which it sucks that tragedy had to happen for that to become a thing. But it is one of the things that just have to happen in order for those changes to make way, So tell me about what you hope that the community takes from the crash, Katie.
Just a continued sense of community that we have here, that it's never forgotten.
Absolutely.
That the traditions continue, and the incoming students participate as well.
I love that.
That they take part in the activities so that they also can feel a sense of community because we
So
have a lot
they
of
learn
people
and
that
grow.
come from everywhere.
We really do. We really, really do.
Because of the movie and
Absolutely.
those type of things.
And
So-
now, it seems like, and you guys probably know more than me because I'm not involved in the alumni chapters or anything like that. It seems like Brad has breathed new life into making it known of that we did rise from glory. We did come back from that, and we are growing steadily bigger than ever. Would you guys agree with that?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at from the time the plane crash happened till we had our first championship,
Oh yeah,
that's only 20 years.
right. I
And that's
remember.
pretty
I remember
remarkable.
being at that game. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it was a very fond memory of mine as a child to have been at that game. We grew up kind of poor, so going to a Marshall game was a really big treat. And my uncle had taken me, and I just remember. Like, what the hell is going on? All these people are crazy, you know, because I had never been to a big football game before. So I thought that was really cool to be at that game of all the games.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was awesome.
And it's, one of the traditions that I like is that the football players go up from the stadium. They run up to Spring Hill Cemetery
Every year.
and, sit around the monument and they all talk.
Yes.
And Rev, tells a story and, they get to feel the presence of those players.
Absolutely.
And I think that helps some of these players realize they're playing for 75 people. Every time they hit that field, they're playing for those 75.
Which I think that's why our community embraces them the way that we do, because of that experience that they get to have. And I agree with you. I think that's a beautiful thing. If you've never been to the Healing Fields at Spring Hill Cemetery, it is a force to be reckoned with. You can definitely, I don't want to get too ghostly here, but you can feel a presence. You really can. You can feel that they are there and they love this community. And I love that we all keep showing up. I love that you said that we keep those traditions going. I think that's beautiful. I think that is probably the best legacy that could be had, was to keep these traditions going.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you guys for being on. Is there anything you guys want to say before we go? Anything that I'm forgetting?
Go hard.
Oh,
Yes,
beautiful. We are. I'm going to share with you an excerpt written from Melinda Shields about her cousin that was on the football team that lost their lives that fateful November 1970 flight. Mike Blake was a member of the 1970 Marshall University football team. He was also my cousin. I was 8 years old when the plane carrying the football team, coaches, and fans crashed. While my memories of that time have softened due to time and age, I do have etched in my thoughts very specific details that I would like to share with you as the anniversary of this historic event approaches. Mike Blake was my dad's first cousin, so my second cousin. He and my dad were not only cousins, but friends and hunting buddies. They both played for Marshall and shared that as well. At family gatherings, my mama's house, Mike would walk us through the door, and to my 8-year-old self, he was larger than life. I knew him to be kind and happy. I can still see his face. He reminded me of my dad. On that fateful night so many years ago, I remember Dad crying. It would be many years later before I truly understood the impact of that night that it had on my dad and our community. I also remember my mama, Mike's aunt, being in the hospital and my dad saying, "No one should tell her why she's in the hospital." A strange thing to remember, but I suppose to an 8-year-old those words were very impactful. We move forward with life, but we never forget. We remember all those lost. We remember as a college, as a community, and as a town. I often walk past the plane crash memorial that sits on the hill in Spring Hill Cemetery. It's a beautiful setting. You can see the sun setting, and for a fraction of time it illuminates the memorial. The memories of Mike come flooding back, and I smile. I offer up a silent prayer of thanks that I had those times with my family. Honor them always. Share the story of heartbreak, healing, resilience, and rebirth with the younger generations so that it's never forgotten. It's our responsibility moving forward that they are all remembered. We have another story that's shared also about Mike Blake from his cousin, Michelle Blake Morrison. I was only 7 years old when the Marshall plane crash happened. My cousin Mike Blake's life was taken when he was way too young. Mike was handsome and just a nice guy. My strongest memory of him is he always got us in trouble at church with my mama. I remember sitting on his lap, and he always was either tickling me or poking me with his finger and making me laugh in the middle of the sermon, and Mama would be giving us a stink eye for disrupting. The evening of the crash, I knew something was wrong, but was sent to bed, but not without getting a glimpse of the TV and seeing the burning plane. That image has been burned into my brain, and I will never forget. My sister Melinda and I were too young to attend the service for Mike, but our 2 older sisters were allowed to go. It was extremely hard for my dad because he loved Mike so much. In my later years, as I attended middle school and high school, I became friends with a lot of kids that lost parents in the plane crash. It was then that it really hit me how it impacted so many lives in our small community. I'm still friends with those people, and they have gone on and have done so much for our community. Courtney Proctor Cross, Parker Ward, and all the Hagley children are just a few. When the Marshall movie came out, those memories just came flooding back, especially in the beginning of the movie when they show the live footage of the plane crash and all the flames and the debris everywhere. That's what I remember the most. As I said earlier, that image will be forever burned into my brain. I visited the site of the plane crash not long ago, and I visit the memorial in Spring Hill very often. Mike is not buried there, but he rests in peace beside my mama and my dad. It warms my heart to know that Dad is finally being reunited with Mike, the son that he never had. He had 4 daughters. Shoo. As long as I live, I will never forget that awful night when so many lives were lost. I think that it's important we wrap up the episode by saying the names of the lives that are lost in the 1970 Marshall plane crash. Captain Frank Abbott, Jim Adams, Mark Andrews, Charles Arnold, Rachel Arnold, Mike Blake, Dennis Blevins, Willie Bluford, Donald Booth, Deke Brackett, Larry Brown, Tom Brown, Al Corelli Jr., Dr. Joseph Chambers, Peggy Chambers, Roger Childers, Stuart Cotterill, Rick Dardinger, David DeBoard, Danny Deese, Gary George, Kevin Gilmore, Dave Griffith, Dr. Ray Hagley, Shirley Hagley, Art Harris, Arthur Lawrence Harris, Bob Harris, Emmett O'Heath, Elaine Heath, Bobby Joe Hill, Joe Hood, Tom Howard, James Gerald, Cynthia Gerald, Ken Jones, Charlie Katz, Marcelo Lederman, Rick Leach, Frank Laura, Gene Morehouse, Jim Moss, Barry Nash, Jeff Nathan, Pat Norrell, Dr. Brian O'Connor, Bob Patterson, Charlene Pote, Michael Prestera, Dr. Glenn Preston, Phyllis Preston, Dr. Herbert D. Proctor, Courtney Proctor, Morel Ralston, Helene Ralston, Scotty Reese, Jack Repulsi, Larry Sanders, Al Saylor, Jim Schroer, Art Shannon, Ted Shoebridge, Alan Skeens, Jerry Smith, Jerry Steinbach, Donald Tackett, Rick Tolley, Robert Van Horn, Roger Vanover, Patricia Voigt, Parker Ward, Norman Winchman, Freddie Wilson, John Young. Thank you for joining us this month, and remember to keep the lives not only alive, but remembered for the lives that were lost in this horrific plane crash that has gone down in one of West Virginia's worst tragedies, but also one of the worst tragedies in sports history. We love you, and we hope you come back next month.